morning, everybody, and welcome back to Cedar Creek Homestead. I hope you're going to have a blessed day today. I'm out here early this morning getting ready to hang clothes out on the clothesline, trying to keep the house cooler by not using the dryer, saving on our electric bill at the same time. But I thought I better go ahead before the house comes alive with bustling little boys and get our heart-to-heart video done. Spend a little bit of time with you, try and encourage your hearts. That's what my heart-to-heart videos are for, is to be an encouragement to those that are in need of a little bit of encouragement, or a little bit of enlightenment, or a little bit of reassurance that it's okay to lay down some of the burdens that we try to carry every day. The first thing that I would ask you this morning, jumping right into it, is have you ever failed in life? Now, it might be a little failure, like burning toast, or forgetting to put coffee grounds in your coffee pot and letting your pot go through the whole process, and then you have a pot of hot water at the end of your coffee making session. Well, if you've been with me for very long, you know that I've done that several times. So that tells you right there that I have had little failures in my life. I've burned plenty of toast, and I don't like burnt toast. I don't know very many people that do, and I don't want to spend my time with the butter knife scraping all the burnt off. But we know that there are failures, and sometimes there's big failures in our lives. Sometimes it might be something within our marriages, marital problems, or a division between you and your children or other family members. And those things are painful, and those things are hard to overcome. Now, those little failures, they're easy. I won't say that there's not a little bit of an embarrassment that's involved with those small failures, when we have to admit that we did something that might seem silly to some people. The big failures, they hold on, and it takes longer to get over those when we really feel deep within our heart that we failed. Sometimes it takes a while to say, I'm okay, I'm over it, I learned from it. And sometimes we carry it with us our whole entire life. Maybe we tried a particular career and we just weren't good at it. And it left us with a mark on our lives that we thought, well, we will just settle because this is as good as it gets for me. And we know that deep within our hearts that that's wrong. That's not something that you should have to carry your entire life. Addictions is something that people struggle with failure all the time. And it's not just alcohol or drugs or gambling. It could be food addictions. It could be all kinds of things. And people carry them. A lot of times they face this same failure day after day. And if they're really, really addicted to something, it could be something that they face multiple times in a day. And that mars a person's life too. They carry that with them. Makes them feel awful to think that they're a failure. Now, for us to really grasp failure and what it really is, we have to understand that we're born with the ability to be a failure. We begin when we are born, we begin life learning. We have to learn how to nurse or to drink from a bottle. We have to learn all of the processes that go down through. If you've raised a baby or a grandbaby, you know there's so many things that they have to learn for the first time. And the learning is where they begin to face failures. When they're learning to crawl, and they're learning to sit up, and they're learning to feed themselves, and they're potty training and all those things. And that's where we're at in this life of having grandchildren. Here, Cheyenne is working on potty training one of the children. We've got one done. Getting the second one is working through the process. And number 3 is not ready yet to begin. But there are days where it's pretty smooth sailing. And there's days that it was a failure. Now they're little, and so there's not a lot of embarrassment that goes along with those failures. and the learning process is something that they have to do every day when they get up. We as adults think we've got it made. We're potty trained, or we know how to walk, or we know how to do the things that get us from point A to point B every single day. And failures seems like they're harder for us. Remember those toddler years and those preschool years where there was frustration when they were learning to write or use crayons, how to hold those crayons the right way. Howie is having to go through that now, learning to hold that crayon and learning to what his letters are and learning all those things. And there's times where it's just a frustration for him because he'll do something and it's not correct, and he'll do it again and it's not correct. And it really puts him in a heightened state of frustration because of those failures. That can happen with adults too. We can be really frustrated at the failures and, call ourselves names and belittle ourselves. And we don't need to do that. If you don't know it already, there's enough people in this world that will call you names and do things to belittle you, that you don't need to do that belittlement to yourself. You really need to learn to love yourself and all that you are, no matter what you look like, no matter who or what you are. You need to learn to love yourself. Is it wrong to want to improve? Absolutely not. We should try to improve all the time in the way that we are. There's always something for us to work on until we check out of this life. None of us are perfect. And it's a striving for perfection, and I don't mean perfection in physical ways, that everything has to be perfect, because there's a whole lot of us that are walking around that you can look at and say, well, they're not perfect, me being one of them. See this up here, this eczema stuff, I have to use a cream for that, and I know that it shows up on camera, and I've just had to learn to accept the fact that I can't hide all my imperfections, all of the things. But when we learn to love ourselves, then when there are failures, we can rebound easier. Some of those failures might have brought us a little bit of embarrassment and think, ugh, that was silly, why did I do that? Like leaving the coffee grinds out of the coffee and making a pot of hot water for myself. Other things with those divisions in families, or maybe you failed at a job, or whatever the case may be, a sport that you tried. When I was a young girl, I don't know, I was probably 12 or so, and I don't even know if my dad remembers this or not, but he took me on a Saturday morning to the park, and we went to play tennis, and I was awful. I don't know what the thing was. I guess he was thinking that there was, that was something that we could do together, was play tennis, because, my brothers played football and all the different things, and I played softball, but he took me and we played tennis, and that was the one and only time that we did. And sometimes, it's something like that, just a new skill that you try, something that that sounds fun, sounds interesting, and you try it, and you realize that it's not really for you. You're not coordinated enough, you're not fast enough, you're not this, you're that, not that. And sometimes we set ourselves up for failure. We know some of our weaknesses, and we need to acknowledge those weaknesses. And it's not that we can't overcome the weaknesses and get stronger. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes we know that there's just something that we're not that good at, and we continue to go back and do it over and over and over again, expecting it to be different. We just need to realize and recognize strengths and weaknesses. Now, I know there are lots of things that I feel like I can do. Drawing, like sitting down and drawing, taking a pencil, I can trace something, and I can doodle, and I can do those things. But if you said draw a lion, you're probably going to get a cartoon lion that maybe sort of has a little bit of look of a lion, but you're not going to get an African lion. I have brothers that can draw. My mother could draw. I did not inherit that ability. And I didn't keep working and sharpening the skill. I realized that I'm artsy craftsy. I'm creative that way, but in as far as drawing, I just leave it there because there's so many other things that I can do with my creativity that that's just something that I've accepted. And when we can do that, then we move on for that, and we don't set ourselves up for it. We don't set ourselves up for the failure. Now, we know that the babies and toddlers begin to learn, and they begin to fail at some things. Sometimes, you know, when we get old enough, we go to school, and there's failures there before we learn. Now, I don't know here at Gore, unless they've started, they weren't teaching cursive writing. And it really surprised me when Blade got to the age, 4th grade, 5th grade, that I wasn't seeing any work in cursive writing. But Cheyenne went to another local school at Gans, and they didn't learn it either. They didn't teach it. And so I don't know if phones have replaced all of that and there's no need to learn cursive writing anymore. But I can remember using the little paper at school. Remember the little lined paper that had the little the dashes down through it, where you teach young children to write their alphabet. And I can remember creating those letters for cursive writing. And there was a lot of frustration and a lot of failures on my part until I learned how to do that. We've talked about children in schools, our jobs, our marriages. Those are all things that comes with lots of opportunities to fail. When we don't listen to one another, when we season our disappointments with love, so that there's not a frustration and an overload of things that just makes it impossible for us to hold our relationship together. Those are all big failures, big things that really haunt us for quite a while. Homesteading is no different. Preparing, making preparations, stocking. There's nothing there. All of that brings opportunity for failure. When we're learning a new thing, learning canning, hot water bath canning, steam canning, pressure canning, there's opportunity for failure with that. Yeah, we had to follow the instructions. We had to follow them to the letter, especially on pressure canning. Conscious of the possibility of failure and know what to do if there is a failure. And sometimes things happen that's no fault of our own. For some reason, the lids don't seal correctly or whatever. But there's always opportunity to learn from failure. Maybe you stock a whole bunch of stuff in your long-term pantry that nobody in your family will eat, and so then again you feel like there's failure. Or maybe you've made all this preparation and a winter storm comes along and knocks out your power, and you realize that there were failures in your system. And what we really need to look at is that there were weaknesses in your system, and you have opportunity from that to regroup and reassess and make changes that make things flow smoother, and you can overcome whatever that issue happened to be. And we know that some failures hurt worse than other failures. You know, some failures will humble us greatly when we do something and we fall flat on our face. That humbles us. Some are so deep and so personal that they really get in there and try to take a hold, and can really cause us to put the brakes on and say, I'm not doing anymore. I'm not trying again. I quit. And we have to make sure that we're not afraid, especially when we're learning something new. We're not afraid of the failure, because that's how we learn. And as we go along, it becomes easier to recognize that there's something that we need to do to readjust and get it right, correct it, and make sure that, you know, that we have learned from it and it doesn't happen again. Some failures can be costly failures. From a homesteading standpoint, I would say that canning a meat would be a failure. If you try something, you decide, I'm going to can chicken breast. It's on sale, and we all know that if you can find chicken breast on sale, you found a good thing. And so you bought this chicken breast and you thought, I'm going to can this up and I'm going to put it on the shelf for my family. Several things can happen. You can have a failure from a lid not sealing on a jar. You can have a failure of, you get it done and nobody in your family likes it. So then you've paid for the chicken. You feel bad because you could have put the chicken in the freezer and used it in crock pot meals or whatever. Now you've canned it and nobody will eat it because they don't like the taste of it after it's processed. And all that frustration comes back to you. It was costly. The chicken cost. You had to find it on sale and it was still high. Your time and your effort that you put into it, all of those things are wrapped up in this failure and the frustration that comes along from it. So you might be saying, well, yeah, you told us all about failure, and we're there with you. We've had lots of failures in our life, and we've had little failures that were embarrassment. We've had big failures that it's carried us through, and we're still frustrated and still feeling like a failure because we didn't do this or this or this. So what do we do? I read a quote this week that said, failure is a bruise, not a tattoo. In other words, this bruise that you've got, this failure that you have, oh, it hurts. A bruise hurts. It goes in there and it, it gets into that deep tissue and it hurts for a while when it's touched and you kind of baby it just a little bit. A tattoo, though, you carry it around and it's there for everyone to see. Every time that skin is exposed, it's there. It doesn't go away. Failure is not like that, or shouldn't be like that. You should remember that, yeah, it's gonna hurt for a while, but in a little while, you may not even be able to see that on your skin. Now we know that those deep hurts, they take a little bit longer to heal. And what do? I think about marriage, when a marriage is failed and you've went your separate ways and there's been divorce and all the other, maybe battles over the children. And that leaves a lot of bitterness. And that's a whole different issue there, the bitterness. But with failure comes other baggage, bitterness, hate, all of these things. And I know it's hard sometimes for us to let go of some things. But if we do, we'll be better off in the long run. We're not defined by the failures. We are defined by what we did in spite of the failure. In spite of this happening, what did you do? Marriage fell apart. But instead of letting yourself wallow in that, and I know there's pain and there's frustration in that. I didn't personally go through a divorce, but my parents did, and Howie's parents did. And there's frustration and there's bitterness and there's all kinds of things that can come along with that. But if you can get yourself to a place you say, in spite of that, in spite of the failure of our marriage, we still accomplished this. We still had these beautiful children. We still had some good times, some good memories, some good things. And what you did after that failure, did you pick yourself up, give yourself time to mourn that divorce, mourn that relationship, and then move on and discover love again, discover challenges with your job, or discover new abilities and skills that you can do, even though you failed once before. Listen, I have failed lots and lots of times. When Howie and I first were dating, he lived in Shell, Missouri, and I lived in Pea Ridge, Arkansas. And we were both extremely bashful. And I got this, he invited me to come up to his house on a Saturday and spend the day, whatever he had planned to do. And so neither one of us had a lot of money to go do anything. And really, in the areas that we lived at that time. Now, Pea Ridge and other areas around there have grown a lot, and there's so much to do now. But when I was young, when Howie and I first started dating and got married, I was 23, and that was a long time ago. There wasn't that much to do. And so we were just going to spend the day doing whatever it was that he had planned. And so I talked with my grandma, and who was the best fried chicken cook in the entire world. And I thought, well, I'm going to fry some chicken, and I'm going to make apple pie, because she also was the best at apple pie making. So I made this cute little basket, and I put chicken in there, and I put my apples, and I put all of the stuff. Took a pie plate, because I didn't know if he had a pie plate or not, to bake the pie in. And so off I went. And now he was not prepared for me to show up, because it had been snowing. And today I probably wouldn't do that. I've gotten a little smarter since those early days. But I drove up there, and so we went, and he showed me where he worked, and he showed me all around the town, and showed me different spots, and it didn't take long, because like I said, there wasn't that much to do there or in Pea Ridge. So he did that, and then we went and we rented a movie to watch, a VHS tape to watch at the movie rental place. And we went back to his house, and I started cooking our meal. Well, I will tell you that the apple pie was a huge failure. And I'd get so upset when he would tell that story about that apple pie, because I went on from frying the chicken and making the apple pie for our very first date, that kind of date, to really working on my skills with cooking and baking and all that. And that was an embarrassment to me. That was a failure to me. But if I would have allowed myself to say, now I did say I would never bake another apple pie, but that was a thing between me and Howie, because he would tease me so relentlessly about the apple pie with his friends when we were just dating, and it was an embarrassment, and it made me mad. And but it didn't last. We were married 27 years before he went home to be with the Lord, and there was apple pies. But not necessarily for him, because he really wasn't a big apple pie maker. Now, if I'd have known him then, like I knew him now, I would have known to make something chocolate, and I would have definitely won his heart, maybe a little quicker than what I did. But still, we cannot be defined by the failures that we have in life. We have to move on from them and learn from them. So I learned to make my granny's pie crust, which is fabulous. I learned, how you're supposed to do your apples. And I learned, how to bread and cook that fried chicken, so it tasted as close to my granny's as I could get it. Now, I don't think I've accomplished that yet. She's still... and she's been home with the Lord for, she passed away before Blade was ever born. So, I still don't think I have accomplished the goal of beating her in fried chicken, but I tried. And that's the thing, with all of the things that's going on in this world and the opportunities for the world to say, you failed. If we'll learn to love ourselves, and we'll learn to be encouraged, and we'll learn to press on. You don't get on a bicycle one time and learn to ride it and fall off and never get back up. Now, there probably are some people that did that, but you'll never ride the bicycle if you don't get back on it and try again. You just have to recognize that fear plays a part in failure. Frustration plays a part in failure. Bitterness and those things can all come after your failures. If you recognize that, then you can push past it, and you can give yourself a pep talk. I have to give myself pep talks sometimes. You have to shake yourself and say, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to learn how to make whatever it is that you're going to make. I'm going to learn to crochet. I'm going to learn to sew. I'm going to learn to garden. I'm going to learn this, that, or the other. And if I fail, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to try again. There's so many good things on the other side of the failure. And failure is just the beginning of learning It really is. Starts with those babies. They have so many failures at first, and then they're successful. And you see the joy on their little faces when they take their first steps. Well, along the ways, those first steps included some bumps and some bruises, and some falling down, and some crying, and some frustration, lots of frustration sometimes. But then they finally learned, and they moved on to bigger things and more challenges. And that's what we'll be too. We'll overcome that failure. We may not ever be able to do the thing that we failed at. You may never be able to go back and restore, repair the relationship that you lost in failure. You may not ever be able to fix that, but you can move past it. And if you will allow yourself to let go of bitterness and fear and disappointment and all the things that comes along with that failure, then you may be able to get past feeling all of those nasty things about the individual. You may not ever have a close relationship with them, but you can honestly in your heart say you have no bitterness towards them. You don't have any wishes for ill will. You know, you don't want them to fall into a cactus or whatever, whatever the thought process may be. We have to work on those failures and move past them. Learn from the failure. Learn from it. And then we won't repeat the failure. Now, I know there's lots of things going on in the world today that would cause people to say, well, that was a big failure. And so I ask you now, what are you going to do about it? We can't change, we all can't change the politics of the day. You know, we read about it, we hear about it, we talk about it, we complain about it, we do those kind of things. Some people get active in politics. Most of us are not going to become active in politics, running for offices, or that kind of thing is what I mean. We see, you know, people that are going through stuff, and maybe it was because of a failure somewhere in their planning, their processing, whatever. And what are you going to do about it? Well, if it's somebody close to you, or even if it's a community member, you can reach out and you can give them a hand up. Don't put your foot on their shoulder and push them down. Offer them your hand and lift them up, because I guarantee you one day you'll face a failure. You'll remember that embarrassment of the failing and the things that can come afterward. Encourage those around you that might seem like they're frustrated and failing at something. I know that I tried to learn knitting one time, and I got so frustrated at it. Now I will tell you that knitting is one of those failures that I learned from. I learned that I like crocheting better because I never did learn to knit. But with some determination, we can overcome those failures, and we can learn from them, and we can try again. That's the thing. We always have try again within us. We just have to be willing to do that. There is no failure. You either win or you learn. And that's a pretty good attitude to have, I think. You either win at it or you learn from it and you move on. That's what we need to do. We need to move on from that failure and be successful in the next thing that we try. And if we don't, and we fail at that, then we get up and we brush ourselves off and we try again. We have to keep that spirit of trying. So I hope I've encouraged your hearts a little bit today, guys, that if you're struggling with something, if you failed at something, homesteading, relationships, whatever the case may be, that you realize that you can overcome it. You can move past it. You can let those things go, and you can learn from it. And you're going to be okay. A little bit of embarrassment from some of the silly failures that we have, and getting rid of those deep hurts that come from big failures that we feel like we have. Let it all go and learn to love yourself. Until next time, guys, this is Josie. I love y'all. I really do. Keep looking well to the ways of your household. Till next time, we're gone.